almost everyone is talking about Bitcoin cryptocurrencies, but as I always keep saying, not everyone probably understands them. And it has come back to the news because El Salvador has recently decided to make Bitcoin a legal tender. So today in this episode of Talking Tech, what we're going to do is we're going to try and answer some of the big questions around Bitcoin and cryptocurrency. And to do that, I am joined by Sumit Gupta from CoinDCX Go. Welcome to the show, Sumit. How are you doing?
Doing good, Manas. Doing well. Hope everyone is safe. Sound at your end.
Yes, so far so good. Now, Sumit, I have a long list of questions, and I know we are short on time, so I'm straight gonna get into those questions. And let me start with the same thing that we know that El Salvador has recently made Bitcoin a legal tender, and it was probably easier for them because they don't have an official currency of their own. They use US dollar as their currency. But do you see in future other countries taking similar steps? Can we expect Bitcoin to replace fiat currency like dollar or rupee, which are, I mean, which have been there for years and years now?
So in simple words, Manas, this is a very exciting question. And the way I see it is not going to completely replace fiat. I think it's going to draw a parallel economy of its own. Countries like El Salvador and other countries will also open up to crypto adoption because they see this as an opportunity to become a financial powerhouse, right? Any country which adopts crypto first is naturally going to get naturally going to attract a lot of global crypto talent, right? Because crypto is not regulated throughout the world. So countries which are proactive about it, they are going to get capital. They are going to be a preferred base for crypto companies. They are going to naturally attract crypto talent, entrepreneurs. And like, for example, there was one article I was reading that if you have like 3 Bitcoins or more, you can even get permanent residence also there. So I think these are some of the strategic moves that the countries will try to take, because this is going to be, I believe, one of the fastest growing industry in the next decade or so, and a lot of innovations will happen. Any country which adopts it faster is going to get advantage, and we will see a lot more nations trying to be in the race and trying to be the first nation. We have seen that already happening a few years back with Malta, Estonia, European nations trying to create positive regulatory framework for crypto. And now it's also the race where they would want to give crypto a legitimacy, or Bitcoin a legal tender is just one of the many steps. The way I see it is, it's not going to completely replace fiat because of the, I think fiat currencies running at a very high scale, right? If you talk about Bitcoin being used as a part of payment options, right? You also need to worry about, or you also need to check about the fees that is involved. For example, if I'm sending you Bitcoins, currently the on-chain transfer fee is pretty high, right? Upwards of 2,000 rupees, which is not practically sustainable, right, from an economics point of view. But definitely it can be used for transactions. It can be used for large value transaction. It can be used for a store of value. But for a day-to-day transactions, two things can happen. One is people will not use it for a small payment options, or there will be new technology, something like we have heard about Bitcoin Lightning Network years back, and something like that, which will run on top of Bitcoin blockchain and will try to bring down the fees to negligible so that it can be used as part of daily transactions.
So now that means that it's going to take a while before our viewers can actually buy a burger using Bitcoin. But so that
right now, the cost of burger would be far lesser than the fees that you'll pay in doing the transaction.
हाँ तो पता चला आप burger लेने गए उससे ज़्यादा आपने fees ही pay कर दी transaction
yes,
के लिए.
yes.
So that also leads to my second question, and which a lot of people keep asking us all the time, is that if you can't actually buy anything using cryptocurrency or Bitcoin, what exactly can you do with it right now?
A lot of things. So it's a example. Right now, you can't do it with gold also, right?
Yeah.
You can't buy a burger with gold, but still people hold gold because it's a good store of value. And the way to look at it is, Manas, for example, if you have 10 lakh rupees in your bank account 10 years back, that versus 10 lakh rupees in your bank account today, there's a big difference, right? Your purchasing power with those 10 lakh rupees is quite different. And what it shows us is that the value of our fiat currency is going down over time, right? The things that you can purchase with those 10 lakh rupees, if you look at over a 20-year spectrum, because there's
inflation comes into play.
There's inflation, right? So you would want to park your assets or park your wealth in a way which appreciates over time, or which is a good store of value, right? That is the reason why a lot of people prefer to keep a very small or a portion of their asset in cash, liquid cash, and park the rest of it in instruments like equity markets, mutual fund, gold, real estate, and also Bitcoin, right? With Bitcoin as a alternative investment asset class. So that's the sort of trend that we are seeing right now. And if that's also a very important thing also for it, right? Because ultimately the savings that you have, you would want it to appreciate, right, over time. You would want to generate or create more wealth out of the savings that you have. So that's also a very important use case. It might not be necessarily used for day-to-day transactions, but of course, if you have Bitcoin, if it appreciates, you can always convert that into a normal fiat currency, which is a legal tender, and you can use that for transactions.
So you can basically liquidate it, and users or investors should ideally look at cryptocurrencies as an asset, as a long-term investment option, not actually as a currency for now, at least.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And in fact, if you look at all the asset classes, right, and just think about it, what is the most liquid asset class, right? If you talk about real estate, it might take even months or years for you to liquidate. Gold, it also takes time, right? Stocks, you sell it today, you might get money in the bank account T plus 2 days. Mutual fund, again, takes time. But crypto, for example, if you are on CoinDesk, you want to sell it right away, within a matter of few seconds, you will have money hitting your bank account, right? So that is also very liquid.
Yeah, and
that's
it
another
works 24/7 as well. So you can sell.
And it's a pretty big enough market cap. Even if you want to sell worth millions of dollars, I mean, the market is deep enough, liquid enough for you to be able to do that. Earlier, when the market was new, like 5 years, 10 years back, it was difficult because the market was that not that big in size. But now we are sitting at, overall 600 to $1 trillion market cap, and that range for Bitcoin, it might even it had crossed $1 trillion. And as adoption increases, that's a big enough market cap, and anyone who, for any common man, unless they are like a big institution holding billions of dollars of Bitcoin, liquidating them will not be a challenge.
Now, so with the next question that comes to mind is that, and you also talked about the value, that these cryptocurrencies could actually be seen as a store of value. But where are they getting their value from? Because in case of stock market, what happens is a company is working and they take certain decisions because of which the stock price goes up and down. But as you told us, cryptocurrencies are not being used for anything right now except for storing the money. So where are they getting the value from?
So stock market, we talk about value, or we talk about shares, right? For example, yeah. ICICI Bank shares, we can see the balance sheet, we know how they are doing. Interestingly, a lot of people don't know, but we can also see the same for crypto, right? It's like Ethereum, right? So a few weeks back, you would have seen an article where a lot of people use Ethereum for their transactions, right? Especially in the DeFi world, and you would see the earnings. So there was a proper quarterly earnings charts for Ethereum. So you could see that just like you do for any other company. Bitcoin is more like gold. So every asset, every crypto asset that you see has their different use cases, right? So that's where they get the value from. And it's like, let's talk about Bitcoin for that matter. It's also a network effect. For example, just again, taking the example of gold, gold is just another metal, right? We wear it, right? It's physical. That is very small fraction of the utility of gold globally, right? But generally, more than 95% of the gold reserves are in bullions, right? Which is like a bar, right? Which banks or which governments store, right? So that's how gold is also used. And why gold is valuable? Because it has a very strong network effects, right? It has a very long history. You value gold, I value gold. That is where the value comes from, and that's the sort with any form of money, which is a good medium of exchange where both the parties value it. Similarly, I think Bitcoin, because of its mass awareness and a lot of people are believing in it, that is where it gets its value from. And the network effect that it has, as I mentioned, right? If I want to sell Bitcoin, there will always be people, 100 or lakhs of people on the other side willing to buy it. If someone wants to buy it, there will always be people to sell it. So that is like the network effect, and it doesn't has as long history as gold, but that is where the market cap is also smaller. But as it starts getting more awareness, more adoption, the price will increase, or the market cap will increase, and it will come out as a even stronger store of value. So that is the case with Bitcoin. Ethereum, as I mentioned, is a platform, and the token which runs the platform is the Ether token, which is the ETH. For Ripple, if you say it has a different use case. There are various tokens which are utility tokens, and they run within a ecosystem. As more and more people start being a part of that ecosystem, the value goes up, right? So just like how we treat companies with some sort of founders or some people running it, crypto, you can look at decentralized companies where there is no particular owner. Of course, there are communities who are running it. And then you can look at like a shares of those projects or protocols or companies for that matter. That's how you can look at the comparison. But every project has a different way, right? Not everything is Bitcoin, right? Ethereum is totally different. Ripple is totally different. So depending upon which token you're talking about, every token has an underlying use case on which it derives its value from. Ultimately, and then it's demand and supply, right? In stock market, it's demand and supply. Of course, there are some parameters that define that demand and supply. There are some news that also drives the speculation, right, which moves the prices up and down. Similarly, in crypto also, not every crypto I'm saying is valuable, right? There could be some bad cryptos also, but most of the crypto that we have would have some underlying utility associated with it. That is where it drives the value from.
And that is what my next question is, because as you mentioned, and some of the names you also took, that there are a lot of cryptocurrencies now. Bitcoin, now everybody knows, it's become a household sort of name. Even Ethereum, Dogecoin are the currencies that people talk about a lot these days. But there's a long list on any exchange platform. So how do investors ensure that they don't end up burning their hands?
That's a very, very important point, Manas, you have raised, and that's something that we need all the people who are investing, right, should know about. First of all, crypto is a new asset class, right? It doesn't have a very thousands of years of history, right? It is like maybe 13, 14 years, right? Now, what is important is in this, of course, it's a very volatile also. So any investor who is putting in money, first of all, I would not recommend them to put more than the money they can afford to lose, right? I do not recommend anyone to take loan and put money. That's definitely not recommended. Now, if you, let's say, have on the second point, right? Let's say if you have a portfolio of 100 rupees, right? It's okay to keep 1% to 10% of that in crypto as a diversification tool, right? There was one analysis I was reading. For example, if someone has 5% of their crypto, of their portfolio in crypto, the overall risk is not that much because risk is capped to for that 5%, but the reward is substantially higher, right? So it is a good way to diversify your portfolio very smartly. And the crypto as an asset class does not have a very strong correlation with the other asset classes, right? For example, real estate and crypto are totally different, but equity and mutual fund are sort of linked, right? So that you always want to diversify your investment.
Yeah, so that's how you invest in mutual funds as well. You invest some money in small cap and you keep some for the large cap funds. So that's how the approach should be for even cryptocurrencies, is what you're telling me.
Yeah, that is how you should take decisions on how much capital you would want to put in, right, in crypto assets. It should not be very high. Right, you can you can even keep it 0.1%, 1%, 10%. You can, I mean, that's one of the this is basically a lot of people have recommended, like JP Morgan, they have recommended 1% should be there in crypto. So that is generally the recommendation. Now, when you have decided that, let's say if you have a portfolio of 100 rupees, you want to put 1% to 10% of that into crypto. After that, now the next question comes at, okay, there are thousands of crypto. Which crypto should I choose to put my money in? Now, in that, just like how you decide in stock market, you have large cap, mid cap, small cap. Similarly, the standard practices for retail investors. First of all, there are two kinds of people. One is people who buy and hold it for a long time. The other is people who buy and trade it actively. Traders, I'm not talking about it because if you are a trader, if you understand trading, fine. But if you don't understand trading, it's also okay to buy and hold it for a long time. I think that is where the real wealth creation happens, because you are in it for the long term, right? And you are not affected by this volatility, because, like, example, market goes down by 20%, which is possible. You'll not be affected by it because you have a very long-term view of crypto. Right. So that is something which has worked out in my favor. When I have my crypto investment, I just buy it and hold it. I don't, majority of my portfolio, I don't even see it. Right. Because then, the market is so attractive, you might even end up trading. So buy it and holding it for a long term is generally the best strategy. Right. And that is what has given people returns. Now, imagine you buying crypto in 2012, 13 and holding it till today. Right. That is the sort of position you would want to be in. You don't want to be affected by these market fluctuations, right? Now, when you've decided, okay, you would want to hold it for the long term. Now, what are the tokens that you would want to invest in it? That is where your research, your understanding about this space matters a lot. When you're talking about long term, you would definitely want to invest in projects which have a very high long term potential, right? Which have a good history, good background, which have a very high network effect, which have a stronger community, which have a larger market cap. Do not go by the price of the token. That's a very wrong move. Do not buy a token just because that's like $0.001 or maybe in $100 you will get 1 lakh tokens. Don't go by that. That's not the right way to look at it. Go by the market capitalization, right? Go by the market capitalization. Those are some of the metrics that you should look at. And of course, I mean, this is a detailed conversation, but a lot of that is available out there on our, free DCXLearn platform. I mean, these are some of the things that people need to know about, right? And we try to educate them in our best capacity. So a lot of these things are available on YouTube, on Google. You just need to search that, understand it, and put majority of your portion in large caps, right? Which is like Bitcoin, Ethereum. And then if you want to take risk, a small portion in altcoins.
But then Sumit, the problem here also comes when you think of investing in Bitcoin right now, the value is so high. And somebody who's just starting, maybe he wants to invest from a very small amount, let's say 2,000 rupees, 3,000 rupees. And what the part of Bitcoin that they will actually get right now is a very, very small part. So would you advise that?
Yeah, why not? So a lot of people don't know that they don't need to buy one full Bitcoin. You can buy Bitcoin as low as 10 rupees, right? And we support that. So if you want to start your portfolio 10 rupees also, that's possible, right? A lot of, for example, again, just to understand, when you think of buying gold, you don't think about buying 1 kg of gold at the first moment, right? You're like, okay, let me buy a 10-gram gold chain or let me buy a small ring. And that's how you accumulate it. Similar is the case with Bitcoin also. You start and you don't need to buy for one full Bitcoin. There are 100 million parts of a Bitcoin. So you can start with accumulating Satoshis, which is 100 million part of it, right? And you can start with 10 rupees also. You don't necessarily need to buy one whole Bitcoin. I think that is one thing a lot of people, Indians, need to understand, right? Ultimately, your objective is to maximize your ROI in INR terms, right? Or in crypto terms. You don't it doesn't matter. So example, if you believe in a company, does it matter whether the company shares is 10,000 rupees or 1 rupee? Ultimately, what you want to see is the return, right? That is what matters. Of course, I mean, Bitcoin is not as exciting as some of the other altcoins, which goes up like 40-50% in a day, but that's also risky, right? So it's important to diversify your portfolio in such a way where the market movement happens. Of course, I mean, if you want to take exposure there, feel free to do it, but you don't need to start with like a big amount. As we have a campaign called Try Crypto, the entire premise being, and this came out as a joke within the company, that okay, a lot of people ask us that, okay, how I want to get into crypto, but how, right? So the answer to that is just try it out with even 100 rupees, right? Once you try it out, you will see, you will get a sense flavor of the market, and then you can see, make it 1,000 rupees, 2,000, 5,000, 10,000, even 10,000 is a lot, right? You don't necessarily need to.
The money that we talked about that you were probably going to spend on your burgers, you can use that to start in crypto. Maybe in future you will enjoy a lot of free burgers if things go as they are going right now.
Absolutely.
Now, Sumit, let's start with a few concerns that investors have right now. And one thing a very interesting thing that I came across very recently was that one of the very prominent investment platforms in India, what it recently did was it shut down its direct mutual fund business. So what it did was it sent out a message telling investors that from now on, you will not be able to redeem your regular mutual funds through our platform, and you will have to go to the AMC website and do it from there. Now, the concern is that what if one day some crypto exchange platform decides to shut down its operations or something goes wrong? What happens with the investments that you have already made?
Yeah, that's again a very important point, and that is where regulation comes into picture. The reason why industry is asking for regulations, because once regulations are there, it is not easy to do, right? You will have to have deposit with the government, right? You need to take licenses, and only the serious players will be operating in the country. You would want serious players to manage these exchanges. You don't want any random company to just run an exchange, because running an exchange is not easy, right? So that's where regulations and government should come up and also lay out some guidelines on who are the players that can operate, because then they will have keep good control of what are the things that they can do and they cannot do. Then things will not happen. Exchanges cannot take decisions all by themselves. They'll have to follow certain guidelines. That is one important thing. Second thing is, you also need to understand that exchanges you're dealing with, how long is their history, right? For example, Coinbase is operating in the market for more than 3 years now, almost 3.5 years. Even during the times when RBI had this circular ongoing, right? When banks were not supporting crypto businesses, Coinbase was there serving Indian customers via P2P mechanism, even fighting the Supreme Court case, right? So we were an active part of that. So the vision is long term, and you only want to interact with companies who are there with you even during the ups and downs, right? Because market can be volatile, or there will be challenges. It's not going to be a very easy ride. You would want companies who are there with the customers even in the long term horizon, and we as an industry are self-regulated, right? So we are self-regulated. We follow the guidelines. We have taken some of the learnings from stockbrokers, banks. How do they operate? We have our own KYC standards, AML checks in place to make sure that bad actors are not trading on the platform. And we do follow, even though regulations are not there, but we follow guidelines, which are good for the nation. So we do in that way. But broadly, I think in the long term, regulation is the right solution to that.
Okay. So I know that you have to rush, but I'll just take another 5 minutes because this is turning out to be a really interesting conversation. And I think
Sure.
I hope we can have you once again on the show, because then there are a lot of questions that still remain unanswered. So we'll really look forward to that as well. But for now, I have just a couple of questions for you. One is that you talked about the RBI statement that came out earlier, and now RBI has clarified that banks cannot quote Supreme Court judgment or its statement from 2018. Right. How important is that for the crypto exchange platforms? Because I know for a fact that a lot of you were facing this problem or this issue with the banks. I have been in touch with few people from the industry. They've been telling us that there have been issues that you do a tie-up with the bank, and then after a few days they end that tie-up, and the investor money is also sort of stuck with the banks. So how important is this this message from RBI?
Very, very important. Just imagine, right? So there are millions of people who have fiat, or that is INR, in their accounts, right? These are the people who want to buy crypto or basically invest in crypto or diversify their portfolio, as we discussed about a while back. Now, if they want to do that, what is important? It is important how they convert their INR into crypto, whether it is Bitcoin, Ethereum, Ripple, whatever it is. But वो conversion बहुत जरूरी है, और वो conversion कैसे होगा? बैंक के थ्रू होगा. अगर बैंक ही नहीं रहे तो how do you cross that bridge? That bridge is broken. Right? So banks are a very critical part of that whole ecosystem. Earlier, after in 2018, when RBI came up with that circular, exchanges were, switched to a P2P model. But we all know, we have done it also. It's not very efficient.
Also, right? Investors don't understand P2P that well in India right now.
They don't understand. And now we are talking about people who were not core crypto and people, right? So these are the people who are like normal people who understands, how to buy a product from Flipkart, or, they just understand the checkout flow, right? But if you ask them to do P2P, they don't understand that flow, and it's about money, right? You generally don't find it intuitive. For example, if a platform says, okay, send money to Manas Tiwari, this is the account, and the people will be like scared, right? So P2P definitely is not scalable. Yeah. So those are the challenges. Then these kind of steps, right, where RBI highlighting that, okay, they don't. So what was happening is RBI circular 2018 circular was with the banks, and even the Supreme Court judgment was there when we reached out to banks telling them, okay, please give us services. And this is the Supreme Court judgment. They were like, no, RBI has not given us any information about it, and we will still follow the old circular because Supreme Court hasn't told them anything about it. It is the RBI they work with, right? So that was the challenge, that was the complexity, and with that circular, a lot of that confusion ended, right? Of course, I mean, it's not very easy even right now, but at least now we have a base. We can talk to the banks and follow whatever guidelines they give us. So I think it's one step forward, but there are a lot of things that even the industry needs to do. Even the government needs to listen to what the industry has to say and come up with the right solution for investor protection, so that investor who want to invest, they should not be left behind.
But have things improved over the last 1 week after the circular has come out? The new statement has come out.
It is improving. It's a slow process. It's a things work very slow, so it's happening slowly.
That's how the country works, I think. Now my last question to you, Sumit, is that there is also a huge question mark around how the crypto market works, and people have this big concern that can the crypto market be manipulated? Because we have seen some influencers putting out tweets, social media posts, because of which the prices obviously fluctuate. Most notably, the Doge father himself, Elon Musk. So is it possible? I mean, I really want to understand this. Can it actually happen that somebody puts out a tweet and that sentiment reflects in the eventual pricing?
It has happened, right? It has happened. We have seen that happening. So I have so my perspective here is, first of all, people like Elon Musk, right? They have a responsibility, right? They should not ideally try to put out tweets in a way which manipulates the market, right? Or which changes the prices of the market. That is a responsible thing to do, right? That is one thing. Second thing is, even if we are able to convince one person, we are not able to convince the entire world, right? Someone out there would do it, right? In that case, I think the way we look at it is, and the way it will progress also, when an industry is new, right, a nascent, there will always be certain set of people who will try to, be a part of the industry. Some people are bad actors also in that, right? Who will try to, take advantage of that. But these are, and it happens not just with crypto, but with any industry, right? And it all, as the industry gets more and more matured, the volatility drops further. Right now, we are at a $1 to $2 trillion market cap. Even like $100 million of infusion or funds out will change the price by a few basis points here and there. But as the market grows bigger, this volatility will definitely, it's a natural flow, right? Right now, even like in forex markets or even in gold or equity markets, the volatility is limited because the market cap is high, right? We are in a, early phases. As the market gets more and more matured, you will naturally see the volatility dropping further, right? Of course, market is going to be volatile, and that's what excites people, but it is not going to be as volatile as it is today. Now, talking about the tweets that people do about crypto or coins like Dogecoin or Bitcoin, it goes both ways. It
Yeah,
takes the price up, also it takes the price down also,
I think
right? Investors,
that's what makes it dangerous as well, because you can decide which way you want to push the prices.
but it's a temporary thing. See, as people get more and more aware, for example, right now I'm saying that Elon Musk does 5 tweets, 6 tweets, people will not give value, right? So it just makes the market more stronger, and people also get used to it. Initially, whenever something is new, when the world's richest person tweets about Bitcoin for the first time, it's good, right? A lot of people do that, but also a lot of people, and it's not just limited to crypto market. If you see, it has happened with GameStop shares also,
Yeah.
right? So it is not just a crypto market phenomena; it is a global market where a group of people or a community of people, they just decide something, and that's something that is happening, right? It's happening. It happens in Indian stock market also, right? We might not know it that closely, but it happens, right? Now, as the market gets more maturity, as people get more understanding, they will start ignoring these things, and the market will not react to it.
आई थिंक वो हम सब ने बचपन में कहानी सुनी ना, भेड़िया आया वाली, जब वो
हाँ. Yes.
सही में जब भेड़िया
Next
आया.
time I guess people will not bother.
Yeah, and I think as you rightly said, once the industry matures and you have a proper regulation, for example, what we have for the stock market as well, there is SEBI that keeps a close eye. So if once we have those regulations in place, then these incidents or these practices will stop. Thank you so much.
Will reduce. Nothing will go to zero. It will reduce, and the market will get more matured, and these kind of things will not happen.
सर बॉल टेम्परिंग तो देखो क्रिकेट में भी हो ही जाती है, तो थोड़ा तो कुछ ना कुछ चलता रहेगा. But yeah, definitely these incidents will reduce. So thank you so much, Sumit, for your time. It was such a wonderful conversation that we had. I hope that we can get you again on the show, because there are a lot of questions that keep popping up around cryptocurrency. But you have been so kind with your time. So thank you so much for that.
Thank you so much, Manas. Enjoyed the conversation. Thank you.
For all our viewers, if you like this conversation, you found it useful, please subscribe to our channel. Also, hit the bell icon so that you don't miss out on any updates from our side.